I'd like to call to order the Village of Ashwaubenon Park and Rec Board for Tuesday, October 21st, 2025. Roll call, please.
Chris Serbel.
Here.
Tracy Flukie.
Here, sorry.
Ron Mowerman.
Here.
Nancy Mackey. Here. Dean Hess.
Here.
Donovan Miller.
Here.
And Mark Castonia.
All right, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, and please keep in mind our men and women that are here and abroad helping us keep us safe. Action on the agenda.
Make a motion to accept.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Action on the minutes from September 16, 2025 Park Board meeting.
I've got a couple of questions. As we were going through it last month, I thought we had said that we would revisit the issue of the porta potty and the issue of the parky that we okayed. And I didn't see that reflected in the minutes at all. It just says that it was
Okay.
passed.
So Ron, when you say revisit, just that it would come back a year later, basically, is what you're saying, after 1 year of it? Is that what you're thinking, Ron?
Yeah.
That you didn't see it in the,
I didn't
minutes.
see it in the
Okay.
minutes, and I thought we had talked about that when we were getting the motion passed. So it doesn't look like it's just an automatic thing come next year.
oh, right.
So really want the minutes to reflect in the motion that it was approved. Both items respectfully were approved with the condition that they be brought back in a year to evaluate.
Evaluate.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
Okay.
Yep, no problem.
Duly noted.
So Ron, do you want to make a motion with those
Oh.
changes?
Motion to accept the minutes
Second.
with the changes.
Okay, we have with the changes, you're good?
With the changes, yes.
All right, so we have a motion and a second with the changes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Excuse me. Comments from the public must be limited to items not on the agenda, must state name and address, limited to 5 minutes. Board's role is to listen and not discuss the item. Personnel issues cannot be discussed nor individuals named. Board is not able to take action at this meeting. Comments from the public. Nobody here, nobody on the interweb for comments from the public. We'll move on. Acceptance of written reports. Receive the October 2025 Park and Rec Forest Department reports and receive and accept the thank you letter from the Wisconsin Humane Society. Any discussion on either? If not, I'll take a motion.
Make a motion to accept. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the written reports. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. Items for discussion of possible action. 8A, consider, discuss, act on allowing alcohol sales at 4 weekend tournaments at the Cornerstone Community Ice Center.
All right, the Green Bay Area Youth Hockey is requesting to have alcohol sales at 4 of their upcoming tournaments. I was just talking with them before the meeting. They're kind of getting into their busy season here, so it's something that they want to try out this year. According to Village Code 15-2-33, temporary Class B picnic beer and wine license must be approved by the park board prior to issuance. That's just with the relationship that we have with Cornerstone and being on park property. It's a little bit of a unique relationship there. So attached, they have 4 separate requests, one for each tournament. They are proposing to limit the beer and wine sales to 1 room So nobody would be allowed in with drinks, nobody be allowed out with drinks. They're gonna have it staffed, so they'll be able to monitor that closely, so we don't have beer going all over the place. We have had tournaments out there in the past where there has been alcohol sales. They have mostly been outside in a tented area, so they're just planning to move it indoors for this year to one confined room. So, like I said, we do have Kevin and Don here who can come up if you got any questions about the way that this is going to be handled or managed. They'd be more than happy to answer those questions for us. But what we're really looking for is just a motion to approve the temporary Class B beer and wine license for the Green Bay Area Youth Hockey Association as requested. Like I said, that's something that they've done in the past, but they're looking for kind of a different location for it this time. So, you guys want to come up in case the board has any questions for you guys? And if you just want to state your name and your address for us.
Don Chilson, Cornerstone Community Center, 1640 Fernando Drive.
Kevin Leisgang, Boomerang Management, 308 West Pearl Street, Seymour.
I know in the past, it was mentioned that, we've had tournaments that alcohol sales or beer sales were outside, but there's been events that plenty of times have been inside, right?
Yep, we've also done gambler games inside.
Oh, right, okay.
And we've
that's
done
what
it the same way where it was a certain room where the alcohol was contained to a room.
Right, okay, so nothing new, okay.
Right.
Has there been any problems with those, you guys, when you've had alcohol at
No,
the
there
tournaments?
hasn't been.
Have you ever had it at any youth tournaments like you're proposing for these?
We've had it at national tournaments,
Okay.
outside in a tent, never inside.
Okay. And there's been youth tournaments that you've had alcohol and beer at in the past?
Yes, at the youth national tournaments.
Okay.
Yep,
And no problems or concerns, but it's been outside?
no problems.
Okay.
So the
What are-
license is for beer and wine, and I see in your application says beer sales, so you're limiting it to beer sales then?
Yes, we would limit it to beer sales.
Okay, and the second question that I have is, it says you're going to have security staff monitoring both entrances. When you say security staff, what are you referring to as far as who is security staff in your mindset?
The volunteers from youth hockey.
What are the ages of the participants in the tournament?
The age groups are the 10U up to 14U.
I just philosophically struggle with having alcohol available at youth programs just because of the potential that's there. So that's my personal concern with it. It sounds like you guys have done a good job. You have not had problems. It's been controlled. It sounds like you have a good setup to control it, keeping it in one room and all of that. So that's a good thing, but I just struggle with the youth and alcohol, with parents getting out of control.
Yeah, totally understand, Tracy. I just and a lot of you guys know, my kids both went through hockey programs with these guys and other programs from when they were 5 years old through college, and we've been all over the country, all over the Midwest and Canada, and there's a lot of hockey rinks that actually have bar and restaurants in their facilities, or they do things like this. And I'm hard pressed to think of one instance out of the hundreds of times where beer has been available, where there's been an issue, or I've even seen somebody that's overindulged. The parents are just too dedicated to this, to their kids in this sport. They're too busy. It just doesn't happen. It's just a refreshment and just kind of a relax. They'll have a beer or two, and that's been my experience with it.
I don't question the way that it's handled as far as selling in a certain area and monitoring. My concern is what the impression it gives to the kids that alcohol has to be present at their functions.
Well, there's the other side of it too, Mark. I think as a society, this is just my opinion, we do a bad job of setting an example of how to responsibly consume an adult beverage. That's just my opinion, but I think in the hockey community, like I said before, what I've seen is the parents do a phenomenal job of that.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yeah, but I get your concern, understand it.
And just for my viewpoint, like, I'm big into baseball, and I mean, we also have approached this in the past, and our biggest issue is probably different than yours, where you have a building and there's a facade of a no carry-in type thing, where we're open park, and, you know, for baseball, I pick up more beer cans on the fence than I do soda cans, that's for sure. Now, that aside, and to Mark's point, unfortunately, alcohol is a big part of sports in general, and the impression on the kid, hopefully they're watching the action, because if you go to the Gamblers game, or you go to the Rockers game, or you go to the anywhere, right, like, my kids are chanting, you know, the free beer chant at the Rockers game right along with the people that want the beer, but doesn't mean they're drinking it. For me, I look at it on the side of the youth organizations and the fundraising capabilities. Pulaski, they laugh at me every time I go there. You guys are missing out on 20 grand, you know, and it's like, we know. And not the most important piece of it, but it does help you buy a lot nicer, neater things. Personally, for me, the fundraising aspect, if it's done right, you have wristbands, you have people doing everything. Now, it's a lot of extra pressure on you to make sure it's done right, because one slip up and you ruin it for everybody is what it boils down to, right? Like, and that means everybody. But if there's a plan put together, we serve alcohol at the food truck rallies, you know, there's bounce houses there too. So that's what been always my look at it is it's everywhere. There's no stopping alcohol. There's no stopping drinking in front of children. It's everywhere. It is Wisconsin, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at it. But as long as it's done with a plan and responsibly and implemented as you know, as laid out, there's things that can happen. There's people that make really dumb choices. We can't control everything in the world, you know, but yeah.
Hey, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I would just want to point out, while we'll have youth hockey volunteering as the security type people, we actually will have paid professional bartenders. So as far as making sure that rules are followed and all that stuff, it's not like we're going to have a youth volunteer that's in there serving as a bartender. We'll actually have real bartenders in there.
Wristbands or?
Yeah, we'll do wristbands. And again, to Don's point, it's not like a lot of the youth tournaments where the parents are volunteering to serve the beer and make some money for the fundraiser. Our organization as Boomerang Management that does all the Rockers games will be the staff bartending and serving the beer to make sure everyone behaves, but also follows the rules as well.
Joel, do you know if there's any liability to the village at all with it being in a village park? I know I realize it's in the ice center facility.
No, so you know, obviously the lease requires Cornerstone to maintain certain liability protection for inside the grounds. There's certainly protection for within the village property as well, within our general liability. This is a licensed activity, so as long as Don is accurate that they have a licensed bartender, a licensed operator, then they're really, so long as they're adhering to the statutory requirements of not over-serving or or serving underage, there should be limited liability to certainly the village.
We're being asked to approve 4 different dates here. I can't see a problem with that really, but I would like to see us add a caveat that if something does happen at one of these, it leaves it open to bringing it back up and possibly terminating for the future ones.
That's not unreasonable.
Yes, we could, just right after the first tournament, just check in and see how it goes and get a full kind of breakdown of what went well, when, could be improved, and just make sure that it's something that we're still on board with too, going forward.
Yeah, I just want to add that if that's the desire of the commission, then my recommendation would be just to authorize the date or dates that you are willing to authorize tonight. Do not authorize the other dates. Essentially, how the code is written is that because this is on park property, the park board has to authorize for the issuance of the license. So if you authorize all 4 dates or series of dates, then the clerk has the authority then to issue the license. We wouldn't be able to rescind the license unless we went through a formal revocation process that's outlined in the statute. But you could say, we're gonna authorize the clerk to issue the license for this first set of dates or first 2 sets, and then you could revisit it at a properly noticed park board meeting for future dates.
What are the dates of these tournaments?
The first one is the weekend of December 13th and 14th.
After the first one, there is a decent sized gap. The second one, it looks like, is gonna be January 31st and February 1st.
There's enough time in
So
between.
you could bring it back,
No,
in January at that point.
that would have to be what it is, because we'd have,
Yeah, they're kinda lined up pretty quickly after that point.
because we would have like January 20th, say, and then the board would be right after that, so, full board, so,
And this item will not need to go to the full.
okay.
So this is, again, park board has the authority to permit a temporary license to be issued. And then under our village code and statute, because it's a temporary picnic license,
Okay.
the clerk has the authority to issue it. It would be no different than any other temporary picnic license throughout the village.
And what's the revocation process, Joel? Good move.
Well, it's pretty, it can be cumbersome, especially for a temporary license. So basically, a formal written complaint would have to be filed with the clerk. The clerk would then present that to the board, and then the board would have to have what's called a revocation hearing, in which the facts would have to be presented in a quasi judicial manner. And then based on that series of facts, the board could then find that they've been in violation of statute. So, yeah, you may have a concern about, I think Mark had expressed a concern about how it leads an impression on youth. That wouldn't necessarily be a violation of statute, right? So you'd have to find that maybe they're over-serving, or they're allowing for the consumption of alcohol to exist outside of their premise, or they're serving underage individuals. So those would be violations of statutes subject to revocation.
Thank you.
So if we had a board meeting the 3rd Tuesday in January, let's say it's in the 20s, and you were looking at about a week later than that, that would give you enough time in terms of prepping?
I would think so.
Yeah, we can make that work.
I mean, we're in the same boat. We want to give it a try first.
Yeah.
If we end up having issues, we're not going to do the rest. I can tell you that.
Is there a time frame for which this would be granted? Like if we have the January meeting, as they're saying, to approve this, is that just boom, it happens right then? Or are we looking like, well, then there's another week before? I don't know. I don't know the process.
Because they had submitted the application collectively, they've met the requirements, so they have so many days that they have to have the application into the clerk's office before a license can be granted, so they've met that obligation, I believe it's 15 days. And they have that taken care of for all 4 of those states. This is just more of a local code requirement where they have to have park board approval to be able to sell alcohol in a park property. So you've met the statutory requirement for licensing, or they have, I should say. It's a matter of whether or not you consent the clerk from issuing the license to the applicant.
As somebody who's been involved with club soccer for probably the last 5 years with a grandson at a facility where the alcohol is served all the time. My daughter can take my grandson to practice and she can sit and have a drink for the 2 hours he practices and leave. I have been to multiple events, and I find that youth parents, as Chris said, not just hockey parents, youth parents tend to not go to overconsume. And they also don't tend to come just to drink and hang out there. Once they're done, they want to be gone. I've seen worse behavior at sporting events when no alcohol was involved then. I've never seen anything outrageous. And like I said, I've spent the last 5 years regularly at a facility where they can get a drink at any point in time. So I am less concerned about approving alcohol at a youth event. With all respect, Tracy, I know, I get where you're coming from. I'm less concerned about behavior at a youth event from parents than I would be if you were telling me it's a bunch of adults.
As a hockey parent myself, I've got 2 kids in the program. We spend way too much money to do anything that would wreck my kids' experience there. So I don't think that's an issue.
I agree.
And again, I'll say this isn't their first go around. You know, this has been done plenty of times with no issues.
So moving it inside now, the room, is it like there's a door to get into the room type of thing, or is it an open?
There's 2 doors to the room that we'd monitor. There's one on each side of the room. It's, if you're familiar with the Cornerstone at all, it's right off the main lobby. That's a glassed-in room that sits right at center ice on rink 1.
Okay, and then would it be 21 and older only in the room period, or can the kid come in with the adult, or how are you looking at that?
What are you planning on doing, Kevin?
We would like to allow the kid to come in the room with it, but if it becomes an issue, we wouldn't have a problem making it over 21.
Got something? I'm good.
What's that?
Dean looks like he's gonna.
I'd like to make a motion. Motion to approve the temporary Class B picnic beer and wine license for the Green Bay Area Youth Hockey Association requested for the tournament dates starting December 13th and 14th of 2025.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. That's just for the 2 dates, right?
There's one
tournament.
tournament.
Or one tour, I'm sorry,
Yep,
the
the
2 days,
first-
the
yep.
one tournament.
The
And then
first
they would
tournament.
have to come back.
You would have to come back.
And then, but then the last 3 tournaments are kind of in succession, right? A little bit
Well, they wouldn't-
closer.
They wouldn't have to be. We could go one by one. It depends upon what kind of feedback we get, positive hopefully. And we could go the rest of the 3. Or just one after that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it would turn out really good and we could approve the remaining 3.
Yeah, once we get past the first one, then the last 3 are like a 2-week stretch and then
Right.
a 1-week stretch, so.
Yeah, we wouldn't have time for a
Right,
meeting.
that's what I'm asking.
You'd want to approve the rest in January, depending on the first one.
Yeah. So basically where we're sitting is, under that proposal, we'd approve that first tournament. They would come back, we'd have to almost vote on the next 3 then, right? Correct?
Right.
Right.
After that, which I don't see that being an issue, but, yeah. So,
But right now, the motion is just for the first one.
right. Everybody understand the motion? Do we have a second?
Ron, second.
Oh, he did. Okay, sorry, I didn't hear. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the first tournament, and then we'll follow up in the following ones, after the first tournament. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed? All right, motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
All right, D, consider, discuss, act on ordinance 10-225, amending section 15-247G, Parks and Recreation, Park Traffic Flow Regulations, Parking Regulations of the Village of Ashwaubenon Municipal Code. Oh,
All right, thanks, Chris. Due to some recent concerns related to individuals camping in village parks or taking habitation within village parks, there has been some requests from constituents and some trustees to consider looking at how can we prohibit or further prohibit camping in these public spaces, including village parks, in the form of the use of RVs, camper trailers, mobile homes, things of that nature. In talking with our public safety department, we've devised an amendment that is being brought forward to the park board for consideration that would further expound upon what deals with parking for RVs, camping trailers, and so on and so forth. So really the issue is we have individuals that may be camping in our parks through the use of RVs and other camper trailers. And it's really a challenge at times to discern over whether these individuals are camping or not, or if they're just simply parking. And to avoid the challenge of determining whether or not they're using it for that purpose, the outright disallowance of parking RVs and camping trailers in our parks is being proposed. That's essentially what this is. With that being said, this does not change any other existing ordinances that already prohibit camping inside village parks. So we presently prohibit camping inside village parks unless it's within a designated campground or for the purposes of providing security to that park. So oftentimes we'll have individuals that will camp at Ashwaubenon. They're part of a scout group, whether it be Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts. They are permitted to do so as long as they stay within that designated campground and they follow the rules that have been established by the park board and by the Parks and Recreation Director. So oftentimes those are, they have to reserve the site, they have to notify the department that they're going to be camping there, they have to check out a key because there's a fire ring that's available to them and they can use the fire ring under certain rules. And so those types of instances would certainly and continually be permitted. It's just the areas that aren't designated at campgrounds or for those group camp outings that are approved by the park board and by the department. As referenced, this is kind of a piggyback ordinance that coincides with some other activity that is being reviewed by the village. Recently at the Public Works and Protection Committee, the committee was considering a separate ordinance that extends the camping prohibition to other public areas such as sidewalks, streets, parking lots, and other areas that aren't considered village parks. And the idea behind that is to eliminate the opportunity for individuals to set up long-term campgrounds or encampments within these public spaces. Ultimately, the goal is to create a safe environment and an environment that maintains accessibility for the intended use of that site to the broader community. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you have. Clearly, the ordinance that's being presented to you is for recommendation only. If the park board is agreeable to that, this item would ultimately go to village board for consideration at their next meeting.
Joel, if you could clarify something for me. I had a resident approach me and they were taking several walks through Hidden Valley Park. And then they noticed that there was an individual that was living out of their car in the parking lot of the park. Would that constitute a motorized camper?
Not necessarily. What we would consider in regards to that is if they began to, let's say, camp or encamp outside of that vehicle. So as part of that piggyback ordinance, there is a broader definition of what it means to camp. And so they're, depending on how they're using their vehicle, what equipment or devices, so oftentimes we'll see people pull out sleeping bags, tents, or build some temporary shelters outside in the park. Those could potentially mean that they are camping. With that being said, our parks are designated with hours, so the use of a park overnight is not necessarily permitted currently. So if our law enforcement happens to go through a park or a parking lot within a park and identify vehicles that are parked there overnight, there is a potential for them to be asked to leave the park because they are violating the park hours. But if they're simply there throughout the day, parked in their vehicle, then they're just like any other park user at that point.
It appeared, at least to these individuals, that they were parked there overnight.
Sure.
Okay.
So in those cases, certainly we're not necessarily going out actively trying to enforce that unless there has been a series of complaints or concerns from, whether it be the department. So as an example, maybe there's concerns about graffiti or other public damage to property. And so as a result of that, it may show up on a briefing sheet for public safety to add additional patrols within a park or a location. Or if there are concerns that are individuals that are there overnight or after park hours, that too would go on the briefing sheet, and then patrols would happen and that enforcement would take place. If an individual is concerned or has concerns about that type of activity, I would certainly encourage them to contact our public safety department to alert them of those concerns.
So the way I'm reading this is they're not allowed, like motorized campers, camping trailers, and motorhomes are not allowed access to the park at all?
Yeah, so it's kind of in talking with our attorney, we're like, oh, how do we, if we're concerned about campers being used for habitation inside the park, how do we limit that?
Yeah.
Right? So how are you going to discern whether or not somebody's using it for habitation or not? And the real transparent answer is it's difficult. So the only way or workaround behind that is to just prohibit them from parking in the parks. Now, certainly, and that's where the caveat gets placed in there, unless it's approved as part of a special event or an activity. So in talking with Rex and department staff, oftentimes we see people coming from out of town for baseball tournaments and things like that. That would be a part of that special event and would be allowable. Now, again, if they're staying there overnight, now they're violating park hour rules, and we would certainly be able to ask them to leave. If they're not a part of that special event, and there's a complaint received that somebody's living out of a motorhome or an RV camper inside the park, public safety is alerted to that. We make contact with that individual, and we simply just ask them to leave at that point.
So Packer weekends, some of the people I've seen campers in it, so they're allowed then like a Packer week, a Packer Sunday. That's a special event that they would be allowed.
Not necessarily. So just, and this ordinance would coincide with other properties. So just like during the draft, under our current code, individuals cannot use campers even in private driveways or in parking lots in the village of Ashwaubenon for camping purposes. This would extend that outside of private property and put it into public property as well. So that's another reason why this code would be consistent with other ordinances. So do we see campers parked throughout the village for people during Packer games camping? Yes. Is it a violation of village code? Yes. Is it easily enforceable or enforced? Maybe, maybe not.
Under the current ordinance,
Correct.
it's not allowed, okay.
Correct.
But this one would, I'm just picturing, because it's my Aragon Park. So if somebody came off the highway, just wanted to, hey, let's stretch our legs, have a picnic at the park, jump off the highway. Now with this proposed ordinance, they can't even do that.
Yeah, and I think part of it, you have to think about it from realistic application. So let's say that happened, right? Somebody gets off the highway, they drive down Argonne, or they were at Bass Pro Shops, they drive down to Argonne, they want to have a picnic lunch. And they're there for a couple hours. The realistic application is, again, our officers aren't going around like, oh, there's a camper. We got to pull in, we got to kick them out of the park. It's the situation where a complaint comes in, oh, that camper's been there overnight or has been there for several days or comes back every day and spends the entire day in the park.
Okay.
The application then at that point is, okay, we've received some complaints, it looks like, or it appears that you may be using this as a location to habitate. We do restrict and prohibit parking of RVs in our parks, and so you do need to move along.
Okay.
But then that's where I wonder if we can't just use our park hours to manage that then, right? Because like I'm thinking of Tracy with the new trail. I guarantee there's people that come through with little campers that are on their way to bike in different locations, and they might go there. Now they got a camper, and to much to what you said, they're going to be there, they're going to bike, they're going to come back, and they're going to leave. But if it's the park, if the park hours can overrule this, like if you're there at night and the thing's parked, you're probably camping or something, and you're guaranteed to be doing something you're not supposed to because the park closed at 10. So baseball, that would have been a question because I know there's a group that go to Pulaski that bring a old Winnebago. That's their jam. They bring a Winnebago to all their tournaments. But I'd be worried about the general person coming in there and getting a side item, or a good civilian out there wanted to help enforce. Now they're causing grief to a visitor when maybe the park hours could just help. If it's an RV and it's there overnight, they're probably camping.
And to be fully transparent, this particular amendment is coming from concerns that we received from constituents about a camper that's camped at either Argonne or Ashwaubenon Park, not necessarily overnight, but extended periods of time throughout the day, each day. And that's the concern that was received from constituents. So the park hours issue wouldn't resolve that issue per se. Now, as a park board, you could say, you know what, that's too bad if that individual wants to park there, and that's certainly your prerogative to decide that that's okay. But if you want to limit the ability of people to kind of camp or habitate an area in an RV or camper even during daytime hours, this would be the best course of action to limit that. But again, this is your ordinance as a park board. You ultimately make that recommendation to the village board, and that would, our goal was to, if we were gonna be responsive to the constituent concerns about daytime camping or daytime use of the parks, this would be the best answer that we could get.
So you're gonna be dependent upon officers observing or neighbors observing vehicles either overnight or days in a park to determine whether that person is doing something that they're not supposed to be. What about grandma and grandpa are driving up to Door County in their RV and they want to stop at Ashwaubenon Park to watch their grandson soccer game? Do they need a special permit to park for that game, or do they have to park in the street and walk in?
No, and again, it would be done on a reasonable case-by-case basis. Obviously, if there's a tournament or something going on, that's part of that event. That's not going to be of concern. But in the event that our officers recognize that an RV has been parked for an extended period of time in the park, or a complaint comes in as a result of that, the officer makes contact with the individuals or attempts to make contact with the individuals. And if it's found that, yeah, I'm just using this as a place to hang out. Okay, well, obviously these RV campers, if it's just simply I'm here driving through town, having a picnic, or watching my granddaughter or grandson play soccer, or have some type of game or match. All right, just so you know, RVs aren't normally allowed to be parked in our park system. So next time, obviously, now you know, kind of thing. So when the game's done, just leave and you should be good to go.
Should something be added to the ordinance wording that eliminates short-term or daytime, you know?
Yeah, I think that's where we struggled, is how do we identify what that is? Is it, part of our original discussion was about unless approved by the Director of Parks and Recreation, which we have in other aspects of the code for other provisions. But that would be pretty cumbersome too, that somebody would have to know, I gotta call the Park and Rec Director, and then they have to provide written permission and stick it on their windshield so that there was some, if law enforcement were to arrive and see it, then that would be how they would handle that. So that's where the idea is if it's part of an event and it's been considered, you know, if there's a tournament or some kind of soccer match or activity going on in the park, then we kind of know that. But if it's just simply a neighborhood park that has a parking lot, and every day we see a camper parked out at the site from dawn to dusk, and then they happen to leave because they know better that they can't be overnight. Again, this was a concern that was brought to us from a constituent, and that was our best answer to addressing that concern.
So even if it's passed like it is written here, if it doesn't work out over the next couple of years, that can be changed too and added to it.
Yeah, and again, I think we're touching on it a little bit. Obviously, every law, every code is to some degree, can be used with discretion, right? So think of traffic law and speed limits. If you get pulled over for speeding, the officer has discretion to determine whether or not you're gonna get a warning, get a ticket, get nothing at all. And so this is the same in the regards of these ordinances. So I know we always look at the strict application of the law and say, this is a strict violation, therefore a penalty must be assessed. And that's just simply not the case with any law, right? The officers have the ability to use discretion, determine whether or not the intent of the law is being violated. If it is, then obviously there may be a penalty assigned to it. But if we're just simply looking to make sure that these areas stay free and clear from these encampments or these habitations, then we just simply ask the individual to move along and there's no issues.
I'm sure you spent a lot of time on the wording of this, because I can only imagine how difficult it is to try to put it together. As I'm listening to the scenarios that are being brought up, most of them are a one-time kind of thing, like somebody's coming through, do they want to enjoy our park? And we want people to do that. I don't know, and believe me, I know how hard this is and you've done a great job. Is there a way to incorporate the concept of multiple days that would then allow for that one-time legitimate reason that someone wants to stop and enjoy the park versus the reasons that this came about? Because I know there have been issues I have seen, and where these vehicles are parked is part of the problem as well. It's not like there's a designated parking spot near the end of the parking lot. You have vehicles that are parking themselves nose up to a playground where small children want to be, and there is an obvious safety concern for people not knowing what's going on. Is there a way to get that multiple days somehow that would allow for these other situations, but also address the issue that brought this up?
Yeah, I think it's to kind of think out loud here, I think it would be a little bit of a challenge for the multiple days, just because you have the no access overnight. However, you could limit to the number of hours an individual could park in a given day. So if park hours are, let's say, dawn to dusk, they're limited to no more than so many hours in that time period. So it could be 6 hours. The other aspect you could do that we could consider is limit parking for RVs or camper trailers to designated parking locations. So,
And I also thought of,
yeah, an entirety of a lot wouldn't be available, but maybe one stall at very specific sites. So part of that ordinance then would say parking of motorized campers and camping trailers, motorhomes, would only be allowed in designated parking spots for that. So you may allow it in Ashwaubenon or at Cornerstone, where you would typically anticipate seeing that type of usage because of the tournaments and the activities that take place in the park. But then that parking would be limited to so many hours per day. And then, maybe you want to designate Argonne as a location too because of its access off the highway, but it's one spot, it's in this specific location, and it's limited to X number of hours per day.
and I don't know how that would look, but I wondered if that would be a solution to legitimate concerns, but also addressing a very real concern as well.
I like where you're going with that, Nancy, especially I think the number of days, it almost like reverse what we do with the short-term rentals. We make them commit to so many days to kind of try to limit,
Yeah.
try to limit that. This kind of reverse of that. And I know I was, one of the people concerned about this because of the Argonne Park. It was a situation down there, and there were a lot of people concerned about it, including myself. People didn't want to send their kids or grandkids down there or go take their pets down there. It was, anyway, but then when I saw this, I went, yeah, I'm not sure I want to go quite this far. I don't want to discourage people from using our parks either, visitors. But I kind of like that idea of limiting, if it's possible, work something with 2 days a week in a whatever period. I think that might help solve.
Because it also crosses my mind, it would also, let's say I'm close by there and I don't want to have to put in a pad for my motorhome, and so I just wheel that sucker over there during the day and then I sneak it back home at night when the park's closed and I move it back. So it would address that kind of thing as well, which,
People get creative.
yes. And again, I appreciate all the time you put into it, the wording and the thought where it's going, because I know how hard it is writing things.
My question is, how many concerns or problems have we had with this particular problem? It sounds like it's Argonne. Have you had many, many complaints? Has it been one? Has it been 20? Because now we're totally doing an ordinance based on what? So who are we talking about, or how many, and what's the issues?
I would say there's probably at least a half a dozen unique complaints on that very specific incident at Argonne. But beyond that, that we couldn't necessarily measure for tonight's conversation. Our public safety department does get calls routinely, primarily to that discussion about individuals using their cars to sleep in overnight. And so we do receive that. This ordinance wouldn't
take care of that.
affect that, right?
No.
There's just no way to do that.
Right.
Our parks should be open and accessible for people, so you will have people that will use our parks to sleep or do whatever, and people will go and they'll sunbathe and they'll fall asleep on the grass. How is that any different than somebody that was up all night trying to figure out where their next meal is gonna be, and they're asleep on a park bench? That does happen. You're not going to eliminate that. And I don't know that you can per se. So this is just in response to those probably half dozen complaints or so. And I know Chris had reached out and some other board members had reached out too, saying, what can we do? We don't really like these individuals that are kind of using our parking lots to camp in through their RVs. And they're like vehicles, so it's really hard to say, well, we can disallow an RV from from being in the park without restricting it from a parking enforcement standpoint, because it's a vehicle. So that was our challenge. So the only way to really do it, to your point, is you just have to outlaw it altogether if you really want to tackle that one very specific instance. So again, it's your prerogative to say, boy, I don't know if the juice is worth the squeeze. And we just have to deal with the individual that may end up parking in the parking lot for an 8-hour period of time in their camper.
Right. Well, and I think Donovan hit it on the head. We have park rules and ordinances already. And the one is you can't be in a park between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. So you could take care of it that way with just that. Also, the camping ordinance, like Joel mentioned, you can't camp in the parks unless you get a permit from Rex or you're in a camping site, which we don't have any campgrounds in the village of Ashwaubenon. And then tents, if someone wants to put a tent up, again, Rex has to approve that. So we have ordinances in place already that kind of can control this. I just don't know if this is going to do anything that's going to help at all. And I think this particular situation, which you're getting calls on, maybe the police just need to step up and see what they can do, looking at it in a different manner. Maybe there's some other ordinance or there's something else that they can do to try to control that and to help out that particular situation. Like Donovan or even Chris said, if someone is stopping in the park with their camper and they're just having a picnic, we don't want to not allow them to do that and to enjoy the park. So,
Right.
I don't know, I just think we can control it with what we have now.
Well, but we can't, the kind of the incident we're talking about, or maybe incidences, we can't control with what occurred in ordinance. Our public safety couldn't do anything about it. And it was a situation of this, in one situation where there was a motorhome, day after day after day. Went on for a few weeks, every day. As soon as the park was open, they were there and parked right in front of the playground, just right there, all day long. And it got kind of, well, like I said, I was concerned about it, I didn't say anything, and I started getting phone calls and people stopping, and it was just not a good situation. And I did see our public safety over there at one point talking to the individual, and there was nothing we can do about it. I just want to, hoping we would have an ability to get some teeth into it a little bit, but without affecting visitors coming in, and maybe we can't do that. I just want to see what's available out there.
My only thought then is to limit where the RV could park. And I don't know if that's park specific or what, but maybe it's designated parking for RV yonder, not in front of the playground, but back corner, like put a sign up and that's where you gotta park. I don't know, but hours is one thing, but that could get, there's so many scenarios where I just don't wanna pigeonhole somebody to be approached that, and there was a guy that fished at Ashwaubenon every day, and he was approached by our officers because he was there before the park opened, and he doesn't fish there anymore. The last day I talked to him, he said, "This is the last day I'm fishing here. It's I don't want to deal with this." So he went. Now he fishes somewhere else. I don't know if he did anything wrong. I don't know anything other than that, but that's the person that I was sad to hear that he's never coming back to this beautiful park to fish because he was there all the time. And it just takes those one encounters that sour a person, and that I don't want to make some scenario where they both have the same RV and then you're getting ridiculed or something goofy. But so it could be a sign, but I don't really want to put hours. I don't really want to put restrictions like that you can't pull that type of vehicle or type of this in personally. So that's kind of where I'm at.
So I think for tonight's purpose, obviously there's a drafted ordinance. This can go forward with either a recommendation for approval or a recommendation for denial to village board. You're certainly able to postpone action on it and give direction to staff to redraft something. But if you feel strongly in any one of those three scenarios, you can certainly take that action. So maybe the group feels strongly that, nope, this is the right way to go. We're going to recommend the board adopt the ordinance. Maybe you feel very strongly that, no, this is really not an issue that we want to tackle or address within the parks. So we're going to recommend denial. The ordinance still gets presented to village board, but it comes with your recommendation for denial. Or simply because it falls within the park rules, you can certainly table this item, postpone action, but then I would just ask that you give direction to staff to reformulate it with some conditions, right? So I have an idea at least what the majority of the board would like us to do so that when we represent it back to you, it meets your objectives that you've kind of outlined tonight.
If I'm reading the room right, I don't think anybody's really or not too many people are too interested in really moving this forward as proposed, me included. Me personally, I would shelve it for now, but I would like something to come back, maybe if another option to give it a little bit of teeth, see what we have out there. I don't want to completely disregard it, not revisit it, but that's my thought.
I guess the one thought I've got is this giving our public safety officers more accountability as far as checking on people? Is this something that's gonna help them to do their job? Is part of that in this that we don't have privy to tonight?
Well, it certainly gives teeth, if you will. So right now, as Chris had mentioned, our public safety officers have approached individuals, the ones that we've received complaints on, and because we don't have any skin or teeth in this, it's just simply, hey, what are you doing here? I'm just hanging out. Okay, well, there's a lot of people that are concerned about where you're hanging out and kind of what you're doing around that area. Are you aware of the park rules? Yeah, I know I need to be gone by dusk, or I need to be gone by this time, and I don't. Okay, all right, well, there's nothing we can do. So then when constituents call and say, well, why is that individual still sitting there in the park watching kids on the playground from his camper? We simply tell our constituents there's nothing we can do. So that really puts our public safety officers in a really tough position because your constituents are telling you they want something and we're saying, well, we can't do anything because we don't have an ordinance to enforce. They're entitled to be there. And that very well may be the preference for the village. And if it is, then our public safety officers can say, you know, we've talked about this with our village officials, the ones that make the final policy decision, and they have told us that they're okay with that individual parking there, or with individuals parking there in that manner. And unless there's some other issue, the individual's doing something else that may be a violation of law, call us and then we'll respond to that. But if they're just happen to be in the park, they're really just enjoying it just as anyone else is. And again, unless they're doing something else that's suspicious or criminal or illegal, call us when that happens and we'll respond to it. And so that's it. So I think by crafting these ordinances, this one in particular, it's in an effort to be responsive to the constituent concerns that come in. But at the end of the day, you and the village board are the policy makers. You have to tell us as staff what policies you think are relevant and important for the community, and then we have to go out and enforce them. And if the way this is crafted isn't going to meet your goals and objectives, then I would certainly recommend to deny the ordinance or deny recommending the adoption. If it aligns with what your outcomes are desired, then certainly recommend approval of it, and then that gives us the teeth to remove these individuals that are using our parks in this manner.
From a personal standpoint, I think it's excellent, but in my mindset, though, I'm also playing back the fact that they can go park their RV next to Waterford and park there overnight.
On the street.
On the street.
Yeah.
And we can't do anything about that. So I'm struggling between, like I say, what I think is a good argument here for having the ordinance, but then what are you gonna do when somebody says, well, so-and-so is parking beside the park on the street? You know, we're not doing anything that's gonna have an umbrella on it. It's just certain spots that we're dealing with.
So again, as we talked about, I think it's really about what is the outcome that you're wishing to achieve, and obviously we're trying to be responsive to constituents, so that's number one. Number two, we're trying to rectify a concern that they have about a very specific individual or a series of individuals that do certain actions. With that being said, any ordinance that's created can create unintended consequences, and of which I think you've identified some of those tonight, related to the individuals coming to park there because their grandkids are playing in a soccer match or a baseball tournament, or the individuals that are just getting off the highway and want to have a picnic lunch. They drive down 41, they see Argonne Park, they want to get off and enjoy that. It does limit the opportunities for visitors into our community to use the parks that they want. So it's that, okay, here's the unintended consequences by enacting this. We're going to limit accessibility to certain users of our parks because we're concerned about this specific instance or incident with an individual and some constituent concerns. And does that weight of that constituent weigh more than the unintended consequences that will be derived from enacting this ordinance? We as staff can't judge the values that you place in your community, right? So we can give you the pros, the cons, the advantages, disadvantages, but you have to discern over what the value is that you're trying to create by having this ordinance in place.
So basically what you're saying is that up to this point, there have been situations, obviously, where law enforcement didn't have legal parameters to be able to do something. And so we're going to draft this ordinance. It gives them that latitude to use something that the ordinance legally they have.
Correct.
But still, it is up to law enforcement to use their best judgment of how to interpret that law. Like you said, speeding, yeah, you were right there, you know how it goes, you get a warning. We can't discount the involvement of law enforcement in this, in making those decisions. But up to this point, they've had situations where they needed to have the law on their side to be able to make the decision that they wanted to make, and they weren't able to. This would take care of that.
Correct.
Couldn't they get trespass? If they're there, like,
Yeah, I think the challenge for us was, is we were talking with the attorney from a, if we were to issue citation for trespassing, what would be the basis for that, right? It would be very difficult to prosecute at that point, right? They're like any other park user. They're parked
Right.
there, they're enjoying the park.
right,
So again, you're talking, writing this, it's a simple paragraph, but it's like, it's all these unintended consequences that come from it. And the challenges that it creates because you're trying to address a very specific circumstance, but it has implications on a multitude of other individuals and usages. And as we talked internally as staff to be, again, responsive to the constituent concerns, we had a hard time coming up with, like, what are we trying to really tackle here that doesn't limit other users from the park?
Yeah.
And there's just not a solid way to do it. I would argue that that complementary ordinance that we had run through Public Works and Protection is much easier because we're really focused on behavior in that particular case, right? So it's setting up encampments, we're talking about structures and garbage and litter, and we just simply do not want those structures and the ability for individuals to limit accessibility within a park. That's easy. This is just somebody parking a vehicle or parking somewhere at a park. As you mentioned, they could park, or I think Ron, you had mentioned, they could park right next to Waterford on the road, and there's nothing we can do about that, especially during the day, right? So it's a tough decision, and it's a tough argument to craft language that's gonna be responsive to the constituents' concerns, but yet not create all these other issues that we then have to deal with.
And the other issue that with people with RVs and so forth, and I know a number of people that have RVs and trailers, they come into an urban area, and they're self-contained, okay? They don't need a motel, they don't need anything else, and they're looking for a place, and a lot of these, well, if I want a place to park, or maybe I can't park in a motel because I'm gonna get charged for it. And the fees for parking for RVs is getting to be exorbitant these days, like anything else. And there are people that simply go around and say, hey, I'm gonna park over here, I can get by with this. Case in point, people parking in Walmart or Sam's Club or whatever, part of that has been allowed, and I've heard some scuttlebutt that, it kind of gets out of control. In a similar situation here. And so you have, for those instances, you have this in place to handle that. And with the prices going up for camping fees, with a person that's parking an RV, so.
I'm just curious as I'm looking at this, because you did a good job putting it together. If you were to simply, parking of motorized campers, camping trailers, or motorhomes in any park, including in designated parking areas, is prohibited for multiple days unless permitted as part of an approved special event. Multiple day, by inserting the phrase "for multiple days," would allow public safety to say, not only you've been in this park for 3 or 4 days, but you've been in every one of our village parks for the last week. Whereas somebody coming for a day here or a day there, and they're gone, there's nothing. But for multiple days, without actually defining it, because every situation is fluid and different. And it could be our relative who's staying there and they put that motorhome there for this week and they're gonna be gone. If that could conceivably fit everybody and allow people to use it, but also give public safety what they need to address real problems.
No, I think that's a good alternative. The only comment I would have is we would want to define multiple, meaning,
Well, see, that's what
Yeah.
I'm thinking though. If you
Yeah.
don't define multiple, it gives public safety the parameter to say, this is a real problem, or this is just an inconvenience.
yeah, and the reason why I define it, because even if public safety were to use their discretion, it still needs to get, potentially
It's nice to have,
prosecuted
it's
through
nice for
court.
them to have their,
So the judge is gonna say, well, what's multiple? And then if you don't define it, then it leads to potential discrimination. So what I would suggest is if that's the route that the board would like to go, and I think that's certainly a doable aspect, is define multiple by meaning like 2 or more consecutive days, or 3 or more consecutive days. That tells you what multiple is.
and I'm cautious of saying consecutive because in my devious little mind, I can think, well, if I go there for 2 days and then I leave, as long as I'm gone, now I can go back for another 2, whereas when you perhaps define it as X number of days, I don't even care if you say within any given month or within any given year, if you're around all the time, if we see you 5 days, it's hard to not, it's easy to make a loophole for anything, but I'm trying to put the language together in my brain that would make it harder to work your way around it. It would be more work to work around it than it would be to just go someplace else.
Yeah,
I don't know if that.
and I'm not arguing, I'm not.
Oh, no, I know.
attempting to argue, I'm thinking out loud here a little bit, just from a
I understand completely.
practical standpoint for public safety.
That's how you get where you need to get. That's how you get there is by doing that.
So
Yeah.
if we were to, let's say, use that logic as an example for multiple days over a 7-day period, to Chris's point about kind of the short-term rentals, we require short-term rentals to rent it no more than once per 7-day period. Now, they can rent it for 7 days, they can rent it for 1 day, but they can't rent it again from that one rental period for another 7 days. So if you're to use kind of that logic,
You're doing
right?
inverse rental logic.
Multiple days or a 7-day period, but then they can return after 7 days. It practically speaking, I think it would be difficult for us to track
And you
that.
don't want to make more work for them either. That's not the point. The point is to make it easy for them to do their job. And when people are concerned, or when there's parents that are afraid to let their kids go to the park alone, or when you don't want to take your grandkids there because there's somebody there without kids who's just watching you, you don't want that either. And I understand people being concerned in different situations.
But multiple is more than one, whether they're consecutive or spaced.
It doesn't have any stickiness to it though, because like Joel was saying, there's no stickiness to it because
It's got no teeth, I get it.
there's nothing to
Yeah, I
it
think
in a
that's
court
right.
setting or
Yeah,
a
if it
law
was
setting.
2 or more consecutive days, or 2 or more.
You need a hard number for it to
the
stick
2
anywhere.
would be more than 1, right? So it's 2 or more. So if day 1, you're fine, but by day 2, you're potentially in violation of that.
Do we have any idea how many campers we're really dealing with, though? I mean, if this is a handful of people during the year, I'd rather just go with what we've got right in front of us. I don't think we're gonna be,
I think we're talking.
Yeah, I don't think we'll be harassing people.
Yeah.
But
I think this is also to prevent future encroachment on the parks with campers too.
Correct.
Not just what you have today or yesterday.
is it something we want to kind of shelve for right now and have Joel go back to the public safety, maybe the attorney, and see what?
Yeah, I mean, maybe some more research could be done. It sounds like you've done quite a bit already. But it doesn't sound like we're comfortable with the way this is worded or how it is, anybody up here. Everybody has different reasons why not. And we could deny it, but it's gonna go to village board anyway. If we say, okay, let's look at this further. Let's see how big a problem this really is. Let's get some feel for it. Let's see, maybe public safety comes up with some other ordinance in our ordinances or some other violation that they can take care of this stuff or this concern without this ordinance. So maybe just ask staff if they can do some more research and see what else is out there. And it sounds like you've done a bit, but, and see if we, just was our comments and what people have said and come back to us in the future with it. When you have a chance to look into it.
Yeah, I don't wanna take away from other parks for the sake of one, when I wonder if a sign at one could fix the problem. Like, has just a right to be at that park as everybody else.
Yes.
Just has a different vehicle than most and may arguably chooses the wrong spot to angle his vehicle. So could we put it in the back corner where he has to face out or look at a shed? RV and trailer parking, one sign.
Well, to me, it's not just about taking one park. I mean, that,
Yeah.
is it gonna be an issue now with another park at some point, and now we're sitting here again, if we are gonna do something and give public safety something to work with, to me, it's gotta be for the whole park system, and so they can go do their jobs.
Could they get
Yeah,
loitering? Could they deal with it with a loitering law that we might have on the books? Because they're loitering in the park, they're not doing anything but hanging out and watch it. But you do that in the park.
Right.
You hang out and loiter in the
Yeah,
park,
you
yes.
just hang out and sunbathe and
Exactly,
watch
yeah.
the birds and.
There's tons of people that loiter at
Such a
Yes.
fine line.
Yeah,
It's
sit
such
and
a fine
smoke in their
Really
cars at Ashwaubenon. You go there every morning. There's
Yes.
at least 2 cars in those first 2 lots. They're sitting there having a cigarette because I don't know why they got to smoke there, but that's where they're smoking.
and maybe there's nothing we can do or want to do,
Yeah.
but,
Joel, I like the initial concept of this because it does look at one particular issue of the multiple things that we came up with. And maybe a motion to deny this particular proposal as it sits now and send it back for further research based upon the things that we talked about today. And then come back to us with a revised version if in fact you feel like you can come up with a revised version.
Or even you decide after looking through it, there's nothing that really we can put on the books that can help this situation. Then, then there is nothing.
Yeah.
But maybe there is, so it gives a chance to look into it a little further too.
Is that a motion?
So we'd like to make a motion that we redirect this to staff for further consideration and to bring it back to us.
okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion, a second. Everybody understand then? We're just gonna send it back and hopefully get maybe reformulated or get some other ideas or.
So we're actually denying this one then as part of that?
Yeah, so if I could maybe just retract some of the comments that I had before with the 3 options. I guess I would recommend maybe doing a formal denial, especially if we were looking at very alternative methods. So, and the reason for that is this is specifically amending a section of the code.
Right.
So if I'm coming back with a completely different section or a different aspect to it, it makes sense to then deny this one now, and then we come back with a different ordinance, because it could be a completely different section of our code that we're either amending or adding to.
Yep.
So if that could be part of the motion, I think that would be.
Yeah, we'll add that to the motion then, that we deny the one in front of us this evening.
I think initially that's what Dean said was
Dean said,
denied.
yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's, so I will bring this to board with that denial, but the recommendation that something else be brought forward. So as the board doesn't say, well, we disagree with park board, we're gonna go and enact this. The park board is saying, we're denying it because we think there are opportunities for something better, but please don't adopt this so that we can work towards an alternative solution to this issue.
Right. So do we
need
have
to
a clarified?
So I think do we have a
Dean, do your
motion?
motion again.
And a second, but I think it's.
I make a motion to deny this particular adoption and have the staff come back with a different proposal.
Second.
Second.
Second, okay. Third.
Whoever Kelly picks.
Right, everybody understand then? Yep. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Items for next agenda, but I think that's, budget, right? Next month, or,
So, yeah, park board probably, well, depending on where this ordinance situation goes, the plan would not have a park board meeting in November. But if we need to, based on this conversation with this ordinance, we certainly could. But I don't anticipate Rex saying that there would be anything ready for November anyway. So, yeah, well, potentially this ordinance or this conversation, but village board and finance personnel are working on budget items in November, so that's why.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot going on, Joel. Maybe it doesn't have to come back in November, especially if Rex doesn't have anything else. Take your time and do the research and figure it out. I mean, and then come back when you guys are ready. I mean, you got enough going on right now. You don't need to add that.
We're having fun.
All right. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Or adjourned.